We're recording. Very exciting. Good. John's going to try to come visit tomorrow. All right. Driver capabilities. Take it away, Eric.
Sure. Does anybody know anything about driver capabilities?
So we started discussing this in the fateful IBM meetup in Austin, didn't we?
I don't know. It's been discussed a while. So the reason that this came up recently was because somebody was on IRC saying, if I'm looking at this cloud, I want to know, can I create a volume that can do X, or can I do operation Y? So we actually have some capabilities, API and definitions in Cinder. It occurred to me as I was looking at this stuff today that apparently I don't actually know how that stuff works. But the basic use case that brought this to light for today was whether we should actually help expose some info to users who want to know, if I'm using this Cinder cloud, what actually works for a given volume type. Please don't actually answer that, but I could be missing something. So we defined a few driver capabilities a while ago, like compression, replication, then provisioning. And those are exposed from drivers to admins in that you can create a volume type that requests those capabilities from the volume type.
Right.
So that's fine for the kind of admin operator use case. Yes, John, I mean like Cinder get capabilities as he's writing up Etherpad.
You can do that.
So I just did that. And I don't really understand what the output means.
What's the output mean?
Because I got a list of capabilities, but I'm not actually sure what that actually means. Because one of them is replication enabled, and I'm pretty sure my LVM dev stack setup doesn't do replication.
Well, doesn't that mean?
I think that's just showing me the fact that those are capabilities that are known to Cinder, but not their presence in the actual running cloud.
Okay.
I think. So if we'll continue down my line of assuming how this stuff works until someone objects, the theory was if we're already defining some of these capabilities on a per driver basis in a uniform way, like compression and replication enabled and then provisioning, should we actually let end users query volume types and see if those are true or false, or whatever the equivalent value would be? Because people have asked about this kind of thing for a while, and I think there's other use cases where there was some interest from Horizon about enabling or disabling features in a UI depending on whether they're actually present on the cloud or not. And I'm not sure from the Horizon side how much that's been explored. But I think that was even noted in one of the specs that's linked there.
Regarding the replication enable, that's coming from the base driver as part of the standard capabilities. So that's where it's coming from.
So it's a standard capability in that it's a defined capability, but we don't know anything about whether it's true or false.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
So I'm not sure I know what the purpose is of an API that says this is the list of possible capabilities. I mean, that would be useful, I guess, for like Horizon to query if it was going to then query, each one and see if it was true or false or something. But
This is probably most useful when the backend has additional capabilities because they are presented. But the problem is when the standard capabilities are not supported by a specific driver, right?
right.
Because you get compression, LVM doesn't do it, you get replication enabled, doesn't do it, and we don't have a mechanism for LVM, I think, to, right now at least,
Right.
to say, I don't have these ones.
So you meaning that you think that by default, the storage, the Cinder is reporting a list of capabilities, but you're running like LVM. LVM does not report, and you're still reporting a capability that you don't report.
Well,
Don't support.
I think for the purposes of what we were trying to, or what I wanted to discuss today, we should probably ignore this currently existing call because I think it's answering a different question from the question of should end users be able to query this stuff.
And users you mean by admins, right?
No. So, I mean, if an admin wanted to set up volume types so that users would know, can I create a volume that can get replicated, for example?
Or what volume types are in this availability zone?
Yeah, for that one, the last question, I see a benefit to know which volume types are available for the user, but I think that the user should not be allowed to see what are the capabilities
Yeah, but
if
I
he
think-
doesn't have the option to create a type or do anything.
Well,
Even if
I
I
think
don't
it
have-
should be up to the admin to decide if the user sees it because
It's mostly about which volume types gives me compression.
Yeah, but it should be
Or-
on the volume type description. That's why you have the description.
Yeah, but you
and
don't,
the name.
Well,
you
that-
cannot query. You
what
have
about
to
the
grep.
whole Horizon UI case is a whole, different kind of situation that would need the same thing. If it's not so much the end user caring, but a tool or an interface that's trying to, I don't know, that's trying to adjust depending on what's in the current cloud.
Yeah. One use case that we were discussing that would be nice to have, which we don't have because of Tempest policies, is when you are testing a backend, you have a set of tests, and you have to go and manually configure what do you want to test, what you don't want to test, and you might set wrongly Tempest to test a feature that your backend doesn't support, and then you're gonna fail the test. And it would be very nice to have a way to automatically discover the features from Tempest and then run only the tests that you are supporting.
We could
So it makes a
probably
lot of
do
sense
that
to
in the
have that.
Cinder Tempest plugin now if we really wanted to. I don't know why we couldn't. I'm not really
Yeah, the
sure
only
if we
thing
should.
Was not supported so far was because the Tempest policy, the guys, they're just since the beginning. I don't know if it was something
Well, that makes
for
sense.
historical reasons, but they don't support that dynamic discovery of capabilities.
Well, that makes sense for tests that live in Tempest, but for writing tests in our plugin, we could conceivably decide that we wanted to do that. I don't really know for sure if we should or not.
About the get capabilities API, was a suggestion or does it exist already?
It already exists. It's just not really clear to me what the use case is that it was for. Seems to mostly serve an admin who just needs to know what the list is that he could configure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't really know what else it
Yeah.
would get you.
I think that's the case because in init capabilities, it says, using this capabilities list, operator can manage configure backend using key value from capabilities without a specific knowledge of backend.
Mhm.
Okay.
Like I know we tell people to do that for like application configs. You
Mhm.
like get pools or whatever, and it shows you like what you can go and stick into the volume type to get it to work right.
But apparently we need to improve it because it's telling that LDM can do replication
Well,
enabled.
it's not telling you what you can do. It's just telling you what the defined list is for all clouds that you could conceivably consume. That's all that's doing, I think.
I don't think that is gay. Thing is, for each driver, it checks what are that specific backend with that driver, what are the capabilities. The problem is that if a driver does not override the default in our driver class, it will get the standard, which are those four. So if you want to say, I don't support two of this, you have to override
So
the method.
replication shouldn't be in the base class.
The problem is that it's called init standard capabilities.
Right.
So if a driver does not support those four, it should override and return something else. That's the case.
It should be the
Why didn't-
opposite.
no, we shouldn't
The
have
drivers
put it
that
there.
support should
I know.
report
If
that they
it's-
support. To make more sense.
If it's only supported by some drivers, we shouldn't have put it in the base thing anyway.
The bigger problem is the existing command doesn't actually show you anything meaningful about what the driver does or doesn't support.
Yeah.
Right.
It just lists off the properties and says, oh, this is what it is, and hey, it's a Boolean. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna tell you whether I support it or not.
But it is, if the driver returns the proper configuration, it will give you that data.
No, because the problem is, so say for, like, for example, we were working on Ceph multi-attach and replication. So there's a config that will let you pick, do you want multi-attach or do you want replication? The problem is you won't know if replication is actually turned on or not from this.
But if in your driver, you want to add it, you can, for example, you run your driver and you check, do I have replication enabled? Yes. Then I returned that configuration option. If it's not enabled, since that configuration option is not going to do anything, I don't return that value. You can actually program it to do it precisely what you want.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that we don't have it, but
No, I see what you're saying.
the feature is there. And you have init vendor properties, which is where specific vendor capabilities are reported so they can be returned.
Yeah, but that should be done the same way I think wedge attach was done, where by default it reports false, and then all the vendors that supported wedge attach went
Right.
there and
We can go and revisit what our standard capabilities in the base drivers are. That's true, because it's saying the default are theme provisioning, compression, QoS, and replication.
Mhm.
We may remove them and say by default all drivers report nothing. If you support
I-
something, just
I
say
think that's what you would do.
yeah. But I'm saying we can change it.
Yeah.
But I think this is
Well,
useful.
if we understand that
These-
that's how this call works, then yeah.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Well, that wasn't clear like half an hour ago.
Yeah, but it's clear in the comments for once. The comments are good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this does not solve the problem we wanted to discuss here. It's a different problem.
Are you sure? Sounds like it could.
Well,
thought that's what you were proposing.
No, because this is what the administrator would use to create volume types, but the user does not know what the volume types are actually doing. It cannot query, I'm an operator, I want to create a volume type.
Well, we have.
I just query this and I see, oh, this backend supports compression. I want to create a
So-
volume type with compression.
Is
So
it possible just to add a type and field more on the type list? Which
Well,
will show
so-
all the answers back. Actually, I think there is.
The
right
spec that's linked here
Not for
defines an
user.
API that lets you supposedly query volume types for capabilities. I'm not sure if that actually exists or not. I don't see it in the client. because it looks like it's per host. But the spec from Newton actually defined an API to query a type and get these answers too.
Yeah, but is that an API for admins or users?
An admin doesn't really need an API
Yeah.
for that. I think it,
Yeah, because currently you can show the answer specs from the type, and then from the answer spec you can understand that, oh, I have this QoS answer
Yeah.
spec, so I can assume that backend.
right, but I'm not interested in the admin case. I was interested in the end user case.
Yeah, so it would be only the matter of adding a new policy to allow that, or
Well,
split the operation for type carrying to show according to
if
the policy the field or not.
if the whole thing about querying a volume type actually exists, which is not clear to me.
For type show.
I'm talking about in the spec, there's a get /v3.x/tenant ID /types/volume type ID /capabilities, where you can query a volume type for capabilities. This is separate from the extra specs thing, I think.
Trying to understand the difference between those.
Right.
Isn't it?
Yeah, looks that could be what you want, or part of what you want. I'm just trying to find where we're actually.
Well, I don't know if that code ever even got written. I mean, I see the spec, but I don't even know if that's a thing that exists anywhere.
Who did the spec? Can we like ask them?
Which, the spec that I linked in there?
Not sure.
The discovery system capabilities?
Yeah, I think
that
so.
one.
I think, wasn't that Mike?
I don't know.
I thought we talked about it a lot in Austin.
Wasn't that the same API that the common get capabilities use? Does it make sense to have two things?
I just remember in Austin, there was a lot of discussion about things that aren't in there, that they're like naming. Do we have a standard prefix name and then
Well,
very
yeah.
specific and
That was part of what I thought this list in driver.py that you run get capabilities and see this list. I think those were the ones that we decided would be the initial set of the uniformly defined
and then we're
ones.
supposed to add.
So this spec was actually written by somebody from Intel.
Oh.
I think we just started on this stuff and then we never continued all the way down, all these other parts of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
No. Well, some of this started back when we were trying to split up what are capabilities that all drivers should have. How do we get a list of capabilities that drivers individually have without having to go to documentation,
Right.
so that Horizon could query it out and it makes it easier for the users to then go query it and that kind of thing.
Right.
And I know that never got completed.
Yeah, that was definitely a use case. You wanted like contextual menus and options for volumes and stuff.
Right.
But we could never get vendors to agree on what the base list was.
No, we kept saying it would be impossible to do that.
Okay.
We never actually tried to do it.
Oh,
And I think
Okay.
this list of the 4 things was the list that we eventually settled
Okay.
on doing that. So the main thing to figure out at this point is, is it reasonable to continue down this whole expose some of this to the end user idea? At least that's the main thing I'm interested in trying to figure out here.
I've had people ask for it.
Yeah.
I think it would make capabilities make a hell of a lot more sense to people.
Yeah.
Because even we don't understand it, it sounds like.
Because the general model that I had in mind was that you would be able to query a volume type, and through maybe admin config or whatever, or maybe even just the driver.py capabilities list, we've picked some set of capabilities that are well defined, and either Cinder or the admin has decided that it's okay to show these 3 or 4 of them to end users because they're kind of known quantities and we think they have some meaning to users. And that set of capabilities could be shown in relation to the volume types.
So we distinguish between public extra specs.
Well, that was part of what we talked about with this whole theory of defining these base
Yeah, the
capabilities.
public ones are things that end users need to know in order to be able to.
Well, it seems that we never got down all the way to the end of that part. That's what I'm trying to kind of figure out.
Yeah, okay, I'm just being, I think
Yeah.
it overlaps.
But that's
I'm
one of
not
the
even
ideas.
saying this is the way we did it's the right way or anything
Yeah.
like that.
I think at a minimum, we'd want to start by making it possible for the administrators to get more information.
Well, the administrators can already get all information via extra specs of the type and via these.
Yeah, but they can't get the capabilities of the driver
They
that's there.
That's what we have. The problem we have right now with that functionality is that we are always reporting these 4 standard capabilities as if every single driver has them. That's the problem we have.
Okay.
But we can get per backend capabilities reported right now.
Okay.
If the driver implements it, they can.
Yeah,
they
so
can
there's
tell.
so there's the fixing the base list,
Yeah.
which it sounds like it should be empty. I think.
Yeah.
That sounds like it's a good thing to do,
Yep.
regardless of any of the other more complicated questions in
Mhm.
here.
Is there any reason why this can be done like we did with online extend, where we added capability that drivers report, and then the share type, the volume type says, I want to use a volume extender, I don't want to.
Well,
Just
Yeah, that's the part about defining capabilities within Cinder, and we can do that now, but that's not the hard part. The hard part is the informing users of some of this, because I think we can already do that.
But that solves the problem that Gorka just said, that some drivers do not implement all the features that are assumed to have been implemented.
Yeah, well, it's just, the problem I'm saying is that our current implementation is assuming that all drivers support 4. That's really easy to fix.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that is what Eric was saying, something that we should fix. But it's a different issue.
yeah. I mean, we can fix that even if we do nothing else, and that would still make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I think that should be the first step.
Yeah,
okay.
but they are parallel. They're different
Mhm.
because they are trying to solve different cases. One is to facilitate the administrator in creating volume types instead of going to the documentation and trying to figure out the backend, which version, which release, what capabilities can I use. It uses this command, and in real time, the driver reports the capabilities. That's this functionality. The other is for the users to actually say, okay, which of the volume types I have gives me replication? Which of them are in availability zone 1? That kind of question is the one that
Yeah.
we want to
That
discuss.
would
and
be
my question-
admin only.
And my question is
No,
why?
No.
that is user.
That's
For the
that's
user.
the whole premise of this talk now.
The admin can already check that. Checks like Erlon was saying, the admin checks extra specs, it has the information there. It's the user that doesn't have access to the extra spec, and you may not want to expose everything from the extra specs.
So
You don't want to expose anything from the extra specs.
yeah, maybe not directly, but we can translate them into something that's more.
User.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole reason that we need a defined
Like in the
list.
comment,
What's that?
like in the types comment. That's like the type description. And
That's
the type
not, that's
name.
not
But that's not-
Horizon can't query and parse a description of a type. That's not helpful.
So there are people that advocate for the user not knowing hosts, not knowing backends. They just create volumes and
Well, if you have a
they don't need to
user,
care where it lands, assuming that they chose a volume type that contains all the features that they want.
Yeah, but the simple case of availability zones, that's a simple one. I am going to create an instance in this availability zone. Which volume type do I have to use so that it doesn't break?
Right now, the answer is that the admin has to tell them all this stuff. And I think we could do better than that.
And this could also be useful for Nova, for the cross-sell migration, where they need to know the availability zone. For example, they are going to move an instance and they want to move the volume as well, and they don't know what the volume type, what retype they need to do. They have no idea. They have no way to query Cinder to know, okay, I want an equivalent volume over
but
there.
for Nova, they can do using the admin API, right? Because
So
if the admin
they
can
can
can query the asterisk spec, then Nova also can do that and
Nova's
can
not
get the
supposed
specs and try to
But
create.
Nova's not supposed to parse extra specs.
Yeah, so the other thing is Nova doesn't support types. So, but I get what you're saying, and it's completely, totally cool, makes sense. The only thing you have to figure out though when you do this is how to draw the line between what users are allowed to see and what they're not. Because
Well-
Nova isn't a normal user. That's an admin user or a service account, whatever. You want to expose things in Nova that you don't want to expose to an end user.
Well,
Most of my customers in the past don't want their users to know anything about the back-end device. And that's why we always kept extra specs hidden the way we have.
Well, and that's why I'm wondering if we should leave it up to the admin to pick a subset of what they would want to show.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That takes Cinder off the hook, right?
Yeah, because by default, we would still basically just have what we have now.
Yeah,
But admins could opt in to revealing whatever info might be useful in their particular type setup.
seems like a good approach. Solves a lot of the debate anyway.
You can do it with the extra specs. You just define the subset of extra specs that any user can see.
Yeah, I think that was proposed somewhere in one of these things a long time ago too.
Yeah, that's an easy way to implement it.
Yes, well, so we don't have to figure out the implementation today, but if we think there's at least some, idea that this would be a reasonable feature, then we can go start picking apart how it might actually be done, which is a fairly substantial project from this point still. I was more wondering about the question of whether people would be horribly opposed to exposing anything more or not.
I think the answer is no, if
Yeah.
the admin can control what users can see,
Right.
so that they're still in control.
So I guess the big outcome here is that I need to go write a spec that figures out a lot more of this stuff and makes more of a solid proposal. Oh yeah, and somebody should fix the default lists.
Okay.
Sounds awesome.
Everybody good with that discussion? Should it?
What is the fix for the default capabilities?
I think the
How do you
default
do that?
list is basically needs to be, I think the default list needs to be empty, and then drivers that actually support those features need to opt in. I mean, compression is a pretty weird one to show to everybody because I'm pretty sure not too many drivers actually do that.
Okay. Do we want to move on to shared targets then?
Sure.
Sure.
I was waiting for it to say that. It
I'm
was
good.
okay to move. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that's
Go
what I
for it,
was
Kyle.
waiting for. Okay, so in Queens, we added shared targets, volume attribute that is meant to help with the race conditions in iSCSI, but the current implementation that we have has a good number of issues. I listed the ones I caught here, which some of them are on the online data migrations that only, even though they are called online data migrations, they must always be able to run without Cinder running. Because sometimes you are doing upgrades without having your Cinder services running, your cloud is down, you're doing migration, for example, for fast forward upgrades, you basically just install the packages, run migrations, then run online data migrations, then install the next release and do the same thing. So online data migrations must always be able to run without Cinder running. And this migration requires the Cinder to be running. So so what I did is write just a simple patch to add a comment there. So when we are reviewing, we are aware that there should never be an RPC call in there, because if we have an RPC call and we are expecting the Cinder services from running, you are going to break the fast forward upgrades and potentially other kind of upgrades. That's not a big thing. The biggest thing is, for example, that these shared targets is defaulting to true in Cinder for all the drivers that are not reporting. That means that it's not even taken into account if the driver is iSCSI. So now RBD are being serialized because of a fix that was meant for iSCSI. So that's kind of not great. It doesn't take into account that 7 months prior to this effort, I had already fixed OpenISCSI and added the manual scan feature that solves the race conditions, and I added the functionality to OS break. So if you're using a recent release of OpenISCSI, or if you're using RHEL, where we have backported it, you don't need this feature, the shared targets, because the system is never going to have race conditions. So, and this doesn't take that either into account. Then we also have the problem that we are exposed, well, that Nova is actually using this to do the locking, when this should be something internal between Cinder and OS break. It should be something that we handle. Nova should not check, is the volume using shared targets? Then I create a log. It should be OS break.
Okay,
Like,
so
that's a minor thing, but that if we want to improve it, we are now forcing to make changes in Nova.
so this is a way you're proposing for backends, for drivers to tell Cinder and Nova that they use shared targets.
No, this is something that we already have merged in Queens. What
Yeah,
I'm
so this was done a year ago.
Yeah.
And in fact, we talked about it in Denver last year at this time.
Yep.
And, you know, the idea, just so you know, first of all, the idea was in fact for that to be a flag for Nova to create a file lock. That's exactly what it was for. That was the whole idea.
And what are
Yeah.
the backends that currently report that?
Sorry?
What are the backends that currently report shared targets?
I think SolidFire and 2 or 3 more are reporting a value there. But one thing is that Nova would end up creating, that one thing is creating a log in the Nova side, and another is that Nova has to have the storage-specific knowledge of when to create it. That should be an OSBrick thing. Like they make a call to OSBrick and tell, hey, I'm going to start the attach process, which includes the initialize connection and the attach. And we in OSBrick decide when we should be creating the log.
So the problem that there's actually a couple of issues with that. One of the problems was specifically Nova actually needs to have that knowledge and needs to understand it, especially when it comes to things like live migration and things like that.
No, it doesn't.
And then also swap volume. There's a couple of core cases. So the thing is this particular topic, it kind of caught my attention because you pretty much tore it apart, so which is fine. However, keep in mind there was about a year's worth of, or 6 months worth of weekly or bi-weekly meetings with the Nova team in terms of their requirements and what they need to have for this to all work.
Yeah. This was already fixed.
And the reality is,
earlier.
in terms of the scanning, yeah, so you said it was already fixed. Well,
if you use, that's where I want to go. If you use a recent OpenAI SCSI initiator, this is fixed and they don't need to log, which is internal knowledge that OSBrick could have, but they should never try, because the thing is, if a driver reports I use shared targets, that's only part of the data that you need to decide whether to log or not. The other part is you have to check your initiator.
I think you definitely should raise it with the Nova guys or the Nova folks.
Yep.
And see if you guys can rework that and then revert the flag that's in there. I would also make sure you check with.
No. I don't want to revert the flag. I like the flag because the flag allows, if your ISCSI initiator is not new, you can remove the races. So that's a good thing because we support any kind of initiator, not only because from Red Hat perspective, I don't need this, but that's just me. There are other customers. There are other people in OpenStack, and we should care about them all. So this is a nice thing to have. But it should take into account the different options and not create logs if they don't need to.
Well, I guess so what you're proposing is actually two parallel paths depending on what.
Exactly, and that
instead of one generic path that just works for everybody, you want to introduce a second path for optimized.
It's not a second path. It's that if Nova, instead of making the decision, ask OSBrick, do your thing, and OSBrick says, oh, this is an online SCSI, so let me create a log.
Right.
That knowledge, we have that knowledge. We can figure it out, but Nova should not have to figure all these things, or we should not be ourselves adding this information into the Nova code because it's more of a storage thing.
I think the issue was that for the ones that don't have good versions of multipath and SCSI, and you have to do the OSBrick and the Cinder detach call atomically.
Yeah.
So
That's why I
Nova
say.
does have to know about this because OSBrick doesn't call it detach, right?
What I'm saying is that if instead of Nova doing a check, if volume shared targets equals true, then I create a log. All it does is call whatever name we want in OSBrick, telling I'm going to initiate an attachment process. This is the volume, do your thing to make sure that I don't have races. And in OSBrick, we make the decisions to create that log or not.
Yeah, but then when does Nova then go and tell it to let go of the log?
We can have another call, I finish.
So,
or in this case, when you finish an attach operation, at that point, you can release the log.
So, but Nova would have to, because it has to, for detach specifically, it has to finish doing the OSBrick and then make a call to Cinder.
And then it calls, I have finalized.
Yeah.
So I'm not, in one of my notebooks, I have different ways to do it,
Yeah.
but I don't want to get into the whole, because I would probably try to write a spec or something, so we can all make sure that it's correct. What I want is like everybody to get in sync, like, because tomorrow I have proposed this to discuss it with Noah, and I'm not sure that they want to hear all the ins and out. If we go and just say, hey, we are going to make this easier for you, you are just going to have to call one method prior to start the whole process of map and attach, in another one when you complete the detach and a map. That's what you have to do. And then we figure out the best way to take into account all the cases.
Sure.
Because this is necessary for a lot of cases where they don't have the new code.
I mean, I think it's every OS except RHEL.
Probably. But then I stumbled upon this when I was looking into ways, which is what I will be focusing on this release, ways to increase the parallel request to attach and detach, to increase it and not only have one touch on detach operation on iXCASI, to be able to do multiple ones at the same time.
Gotcha.
So this is just that I realized that suddenly RBD was being serialized in Nova because of this effort. Because it's not even checking. The default is true,
yeah,
and it doesn't check if it's iXCASI. And suddenly RBD is not reporting because RBD doesn't know what shared targets are.
Yeah.
And suddenly it's getting serialized.
I think the decision on that one was drivers that know it's safe to not worry about
Yeah,
it.
but
opt-in.
if this is only for iXCASI and we have different connectors, we should have like ignore, like make it, okay, you're not reporting, but you're not iXCASI. So who cares? I report as if you were not using shared targets.
So to be fair, the idea was, the only reason it was made true as a default was so we didn't have to require 80 drivers to go through and figure out what to do, right? So, I mean, so
Yeah, but
set it to false in your
is this
driver. And the
useful for
problem's
Fiber Channel? Is this a problem in Fiber Channel?
I'm not sure.
I don't know. Because if it's not, then of those 80, you start removing those that have specific connectors, those that are not iXCASI, and then it's not 80. And you just made it.
All right, it's
potentially
only
worse for them all.
70 or 60.
It's fine.
I don't know, most of the drivers have Fiber Channel, iXCASI, and NFS. And then it's only 1/3, and then you remove the others. So it's like, I'm just saying, no, the idea is good because we need it, but I think we need to improve it a little bit. It's
Well, I definitely agree. I mean, I don't disagree. I'm just actually responding to some of the things that you called out specifically. I'm just trying to give you some background as to why, including like the live migration. That's actually there because it got a -1 from all of the Nova folks, unless it had the live migration. So,
what do you
you know,
mean?
there's things like that that it's not quite as simple as.
I think it's not that hard, but in any case, we didn't even implement this in Cinder. So we tell the Nova guys, oh, you don't want to get race conditions, and then in Cinder, we don't do it.
Yep, you're exactly right.
Kind of weird.
Yep.
But if we add it to OS break, then everybody gets it, which,
In theory.
yeah, true. That's true, in theory.
So, is this value related to protocol of drivers? I think you sometimes it seems that it is related to protocol, for example, iXCASI.
This is specific to iXCASI, the race conditions, based on the iXCASI initiator
Yeah.
doing automatic scans in a couple of places,
Yeah.
which makes a race condition between the time you remove a device from your host
Yeah.
and the time you map.
Yeah,
That's it. Yeah.
I mean, this attribute is not related to back-end storage. Maybe we can set it related to the protocol, so that we don't.
Not
No.
really, because for example, SolidFire, which is where John Griffith actually made one of the first one that was made, is he made a change. He doesn't use their target, so he would never ever need a lock. So why make it worse for some drivers and that don't really need it?
Okay.
Which is basically the same thing I'm saying for RBD, is if a driver doesn't need it, don't reduce performance for it.
Okay.
That's why we cannot just say all ISCSI should do the locking.
And so another question is about export volume export target in the backend storage. Does this process included in the LoRa lock? I mean,
I don't understand.
Sometimes in the background, if we want to attach a volume to a LoRa instance, in the center we will initialize the collection. So in the initialize collection, we may add the initiator, the UUID or some of the initiator to the target, to the backend storage. That means this initiator can collect to the background storage. Yeah, I mean this process, is it included in the lock? In the risk condition?
No. The thing is, the reason why it's, if I understand it correctly, you're saying why that we're not using the target for that generic lock, or not?
Because I think the risk condition you just referred is about to create in the lower side, it collect to the target.
Yes, but at the moment you have to lock, you don't know the target.
Yeah.
Because you are going to do the map.
Oh.
You still don't know what target you're getting from Cinder. You just know I have this volume. That's why John added it to the volume, because you need to know before you start anything. It's like, I have the volume, I don't have anything else, and I have to know if I have to lock or not at that precise moment.
Okay.
So you lock.
And
only after you do the initialize connection, you know the target.
Yeah.
But you have to lock before.
Oh, you mean I lock and then I initialize the collection and then I collect the volume in the lower host?
Yeah, and then you connect. Yeah, it's three phases. First you lock, then you do the mapping, and then you do the attachment.
Okay.
So the problem is when you do the opposite, the detach and the map, and they overlap. The race condition is you do a detach, you do a map, and as soon as you have done the map, the backend usually sends a call back and tells the initiator, hey, the LAN on this shared target has changed. So the initiator says, oh, okay, tell me what are the LANs available. And suddenly the detach you just did gets back into the system. But always nobody knows that it got back. That's the race. So good. So basically it's just to improve it, and tomorrow probably just see with the Nova team if they are okay with just a call when they are going to start where they are currently doing the lock decision, to just make a call to voice break with the volume, and when they are doing and something similar for the detach operation. So provide them methods in OS break so they don't have to care on the locking. And by the way, they are not using file locks. They are using process locks, in-memory locks for the process, which means that if you run Cinder and Nova on the same node, they could have problems.
But if you have
It's already
a lot of
we have
compute
two Nova computer in one environmental host. The lock doesn't work.
If you have to what?
Two Nova computer instance. Yeah,
Does anybody have
if we
to
have
Nova?
two Nova computer in one environmental servers, so this
Yeah, but
solution
who does have two Nova instances?
because sometimes we do test, we will
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
we will we will start two Nova computer
Yeah.
in one server.
It's a similar situation, two Nova instances to one Nova and one Cinder. The problem is that we would need to use a file log. But I'm not 100% behind the idea of adding the file log always, because then you are introducing a high penalty in terms of it's a lot slower to create a file log. And then we, in OpenStack, we don't have our way to clean our file logs. So they keep growing and growing, and customers complain about our file logs. So yeah, but yes, that's a similar problem to the one I mentioned here. If we have multiple services using OS break, you could have problems, which also happens with Cinder and Cinder backup, Cinder volume and Cinder backup. We could have the same situation. So we'll have to figure that one out as well. Maybe we can start with file logs and then see if we can optimize in some cases or whatever. Yep. So if everybody's okay with proposing Nova to use an OS break, a couple of OS break calls methods, then we can probably keep tomorrow's meeting about this short. So that was basically, I think, most of what I wanted to say.
Okay. I mean, it sounds okay to me if nobody has any objections. Any objections, John?
No, not at all.
Okay. Good.
I have to think about upgrades.
But there is no problem with upgrades because this currently is not even using file logs.
Yeah.
And this is going to be, since OS break is a library, as soon as you change the Nova, it
Okay.
pulls a new one.
Yeah.
But I will think in case I have missed something in there. Yep, it's always good to keep it in mind.
So how about we store the log information in Cinder?
We are currently storing.
I mean, save the log information in Cinder because when detach, the volume status will set to detaching status, and then when attach.
What log information?
You just said we can give Nova can log before it detach or attach. Yeah.
Well, the thing is that for the detach, you know the target, but for the attach, you don't. So, and you have to use the same log in both places.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot use the target log using the target name on the disconnect because you're not using that one on the connection flow. So you have to use a generic one. The problem is that we don't expose when Nova receives a volume or gets a volume, doesn't know where that volume it is placed. It cannot know it. It doesn't know the protocol. It doesn't know anything. That's why we use a big log in there because it doesn't have any information, and we don't want to expose any information. So we cannot store anything in Cinder.
Yeah, you
Besides
mean
what we
for
do.
every volume, every volume attached in the Nova, you create a lock. This lock is a big lock for all the attaching operation.
Yep, for all the volumes that have the shared target set to true.
Or use the same, that means from the same
But
storage.
no, sorry, I said it wrong.
Oh,
You don't get one lock. John, what he did is you also pass a locking name which is set to the backend that you're using.
Yeah.
So it's not one lock for everything, it's one lock per backend,
Oh, okay. So-
which also introduced another problem. First, one problem is that I believe this is not taking into account the active stuff, and it's not taking into account, let's see, one service, that sometimes you can have two backends on the same Cinder volume service attacking the same storage array with different configurations. For example, you could have one backend running without compression, another with compression, because they are set in the configuration option and not in the volume types. So you could have problems with you could still get races because you're just using the service ID, which is different, and it could not get locked between the two of them. Those are corner cases. It's something to keep in mind and hopefully in the future to fix it, but not a big deal, I think.
Okay. Good. Okay, so discussion we've had before, and actually now I have an idea about this, but let's talk about it. So I know that OpenstackClient and Horizon don't have parity with our current features. Who dropped in the feature gap here?
That's me.
Oh, right.
Did your title here mean python-cinderclient?
So,
Yes, I think so.
according to Horizon, in the past we tried to follow the release notes and understand what features are implemented and what should we do. But this process doesn't work at all because it's really hard for Horizon team to understand what project feature actually used and or most requested by end users or operators. So that's why we are changing the processes and we are collecting feature gap list and request each team to help us to fill this list and make some priorities. What feature do we want to add to Horizon? I've added some Cinder features that I would like to see in Horizon, but if the team could add anything else, we can decide that this is really a must-have feature and we should do our best to implement this release. Last release, we partially implemented generic groups and multi-attach stuff. We'll finish in Stein. But any input are welcome.
Okay.
I don't know about Horizon, but there is this spreadsheet that tracks or was used to track the compatibility between the clients, the Cinder client and the OpenStack client. So there was all the list of commands there and all the related information. I'll add that to the Etherpad if it helps somewhere.
Just a list of current client features doesn't help a lot for end users because example,
You mean by end users using Horizon?
or because CLI got a different workflow.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I mentioned because the Etherpad says for OpenstackClient and Horizon. So I don't know exactly what is the scope of the work.
Sorry, I don't quite understand the relationship between the OpenstackClient and the python-cinderclient. Does it mean that currently, if we do any change in the API interface, we need to do update both in the cinderclient and the OpenstackClient?
In the
That's
ideal
correct.
world, we should do it, but the reality is different.
We should, but our current policy is that we only do CinderClient
Okay, so
because we haven't decided to move wholesale to, doing all of our work with OpenstackClient as part of the process.
Some projects have actually deprecated their own CLI. So something like python-cinderclient would just be a library for writing Python code, not a CLI interface. And all CLI stuff goes into OpenstackClient. But we're not ready.
So I have noticed that the OpenStack client fails to create volume also, like the code is really outdated in it.
Deprecated OpenstackClient code.
Sorry, how was that?
The OpenStack volume create command also fails.
Well, it works some of the time.
Sorry, my brain's getting a little goofy. Say that again, Rajat. What did you say?
I have recently tried the OpenStack volume create command and it fails. Like it gives some error related to source replica.
Oh,
I guess it has removed in Python-cinderclient
you need to
but
update.
yet-
They have, there was a
to
bug
be
that
updated in OpenStack client.
they fixed, so you just need to update your OpenStack client.
Okay. Yeah, Sean said that's a known bug that's been fixed. You just need a newer version of the OpenStack client.
So the
Okay, I also noticed that it was using V1 APIs of cinderclient in it.
Okay, there's no way that there's only.
And that's what we do.
Oh, okay. Okay, that makes more sense.
what does bold mean here? Excuse me.
Pleasure.
Well, I mean, manage exists. They just called it something different. So what does this list mean exactly?
Well, yeah, this is on the left is what the command was, on the right is what the command is in OpenStack client.
I thought it was called adopt or something.
Yeah, adopt and
I
abandon.
don't think it was whatever that was. Does it do that too? I don't know.
Oh, volume create. Yeah, I thought they were going to do adopt and abandon.
I'm pretty sure they did it.
Yeah, I thought they had already done it. I don't like remote source. That sounds more like creating volume from an image or something.
That sounds great.
Also, I'm not sure what we're trying to figure out here. I mean, one of the main reasons that this whole topic is an issue is that most of us that are working on Cinder need to do the changes for cinderclient and don't have a lot of good bandwidth to go do OpenstackClient at the same time,
Right.
or bandwidth or interest or knowledge or whatever the reason might be. I don't really know what we can propose to make that better, because I don't think we're still at a state where it's reasonable to demand that we do this for
No.
new things. So
I
I'm not really sure what we want to do here.
I think didn't this topic get added partly out of the discussion that we had is that we don't even have a communication channel to let Horizon or OpenstackClient know that we've even added some new functionality.
So should
More
we be filing, feature requests when we land new features?
Yeah, and I had proposed on the mailing list having some kind of client impact tag like we had for doc impact that would automatically go out and create bugs, but with the transition to storyboard, and looking into what it would actually take to implement that kind of trigger within the system, that'd be a lot of work.
The first way to do that would just to make sure we poke somebody anytime we
Yeah.
land a new micro version.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, so maybe it's just awareness and policy that we need to make sure we do these things.
But I'm not sure that that's going to lead to a bunch of other OpenStack client developers actually doing
No.
this.
Well, so here's a question. One, as I'm defining our storyboard process, is it useful to have a, OSC impact tag? Since if we can't do it in the project, do it in the bug there, and a Horizon impact tag, or I guess we would just say a client impact tag.
Sure.
And
Text, you can do text for blueprints in the launch page.
yeah,
We could add tasks, right?
Yeah.
Like you need, because each
Yep.
one will implement it at different times.
But
Right.
the main thing we have to do with that though is make sure that those tasks don't block us shipping the Cinder feature.
right.
It needs to be like a detached, part.
I don't think it wouldn't, the individual tasks wouldn't
Yeah.
block it.
Because then we
and
can at
then-
least have a good record of what needs
Yeah.
to happen.
Exactly. And which ones have been implemented in Horizon, which ones similarly in OpenstackClient.
Is this an outreachy type project for somebody?
Seems like it could be.
We would need somebody to mentor them. I don't know who has enough client experience to do that. See a lot of people staring blankly at their computers. So. But that might be we would need to do some legwork to get the right contacts in OSC, and I'm assuming it's going to be really hard to get a hold of the Horizon guy. But
They're so hard to work with.
Well, the code in OpenstackClient can't be that much different than CinderClient, right?
Can you
Sure
just
could be.
create required OpenstackClient plugin?
Huh?
So if we decide to implement OpenstackClient plugin in our CinderClient code, so it will be easier for everybody from Cinder team to add a new feature to OpenstackClient.
I don't know that makes it much easier. I mean,
It's easier because usually you add CLI support of your feature to
yeah, but OpenStack Client has renamed like 70% of our things that they've added into it.
yes.
And so I don't know how that's going to happen if we try to have the same code for both of them. Because what's going to happen is we're going to add stuff to Cinder Client, and then they're going to object to the UI decisions or something.
But no, you're saying do it as a plugin.
Yes. So we
To
can do,
open, can they do plugins in OpenstackClient?
yes,
Yeah.
sure.
I don't think they're gonna wanna do plugins for something like Cinder though.
So everything that they've renamed, we could just have them go out to like some web page that has a list of all the historical names for that same thing and then do a look at it. I'm pretty sure we do that for URLs.
I'm confused about the idea of the plugin thing. Okay.
So he's saying that it'd be easier if it was code that we owned that was a plugin to OpenstackClient rather than us having to modify OpenstackClient.
Yeah, but now that we've already landed a whole ton of stuff in OpenstackClient, I don't think we can just like swap it into a plugin for Cinder.
Yeah.
Because it's already all in there.
And it kind of just moves where the problem is. Someone still has to implement this stuff.
And yeah, I don't think writing the code is the hard part. I think the hard part is making sure we know which features need to get exposed there and, you know, how to make them discoverable and have the right naming convention and whatever.
If I remember correctly, OpenstackClient is still using Cinder v2 API.
I was wondering about that too. I'm not sure if that's still the case or not.
I don't know the latest.
That's a pretty big roadblock if that's the case.
The OpenStack SDK didn't even support it. v3.
OpenStack SDK does not have, or maybe they landed the patches, but I saw it a few months ago, and OpenStack SDK didn't support microversion.
They don't
They do have v3.
Do they have v3 with micro versions or is it just?
Oh, wait a minute.
Might just be the V3 that is sort of V2.
Yeah, I think so.
Because if they don't have micro versions, we can't really do a whole lot.
Oh, OpenstackClient has microversions. I was talking about OpenStack SDK.
I don't know anything about OpenStack SDK.
I tried to get into that nightmare.
But why?
I had a demo and OpenstackClient wasn't cutting it. So. Then I realized I was just going to use OpenstackClient.
So if it has micro versions, does it actually call any Cinder operations that use them? Because I'm trying to find one.
Nice for Cinder API returning in OpenstackClient.
So it seems like we need to, if they're still on V2, that's something we need to look at.
Well, they at least have v3, but it looks like the
Yeah,
commit that added v3 specifically says it doesn't do micro versions. So unless something happened after that.
So what good, that doesn't really do us much good then.
Well, it helps us when we want to turn off v2, but that's about it.
Okay. I mean, Nova's using micro versions. They
Well,
don't.
that's
Yes,
what I was
OpenstackClient has some basic support of microversion. And they do it for Nova.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
They also have code that's importing CinderClient v1.
Sean was supposed to clean all that out. No V1 for you.
That's part of the problem with them. Well, I shouldn't say that's the problem with them, but they want to be able to support any cloud at, any version. So
V1's been old for a long time.
yeah,
So it means we can remove the one from CinderClient.
we can, and we can force them to not support it anymore. Well, I thought they were also doing some effort to get rid of relying on all the clients and using OpenStack SDK as their own client,
Yeah.
partly to not
Yeah.
have to
There
import.
was that.
Monty was talking about that.
Yeah.
The original idea of OpenStack SDK is to get rid of Python clients, use OpenStack SDK for as Python API for any project, and OpenStack client should use OpenStack SDK too. Sometimes in the future.
Okay. Well, then we're gonna need to get V3 support there too. Did you put that in, Matt?
Put what in?
V3 support in OpenStack SDK, or did you work around it?
I worked around it. I tried getting it in there, but Monty was in the middle of a huge revamp of everything, and so it kept delaying and delaying and delaying, and then eventually it just came out.
Okay.
I got DevStack default changed to 3. Yeah, which was a 1 character change. One of my proudest moments.
It was 3-4 months to reach that.
Yeah, it did take about 3 months to reach it.
You changed the DevStack world though.
Forever.
I can get brain for 3.
Okay. So I don't feel like we've made a lot of progress on this one. Not that I really expected we would.
Well, the workflow ideas around tracking tasks sound reasonable.
Okay.
The SDK is like when it works.
Do we want to see if we can get an outreachy person to help with this, or should we wait a little while longer and get our task tracking around this and stuff done first?
Do we have any idea how the OpenStack client team feels about any of this?
No idea.
Are they like aware that we're here at all?
They're really resource constrained, so I think any kind of help that they could get, they'd be happy.
That's kind of what I figured.
I know they don't like the word abandon.
But
They don't.
I thought that was their idea.
Oh, wait.
Yeah, they were adopt abandoned. They didn't like.
Oh, that's right. They liked adopting and abandoning, not managing and not managing.
We discussed it a few years ago.
Yeah. That was in Atlanta. Walt and I went in and had that discussion with them. They're like, you guys are cruel, wanting to abandon our volumes. I'll investigate. If this is something that could be done by a outreachy intern type person. And see what they say, and we'll go from there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. We got something out of it. Okay, so we're about half an hour ahead of schedule. That's not all bad. Well, I've got an extra minute or two here. So I asked Thierry on Monday, I think it was, what our graph looked like as far as participation. And interestingly enough, I mean, we've had a decline in Queens and Rocky, but
This is merges per day.
I'm
I'm not sure that's a bad thing.
yeah. And really, it's not that big a change in the grand scheme of things, especially now that I blow it up and see the x-axis better.
What's on the bottom?
So it's Folsom, Grizzly, etc. So our peak was in Newton at 7 changes merged a day. And right now we're at just under 5.
Is that accountable for just from like translation jobs and stuff?
I have no idea. And then he also shared this one, which shows total contributors.
It means who provide patch or reviewers.
Yes, committers or programmers.
This contributor. This is categories.
Well, he explained this during his presentation on Monday, I think. So I think this is anybody who has provided a patch during the release gets counted, and the retained contributors would then be ones that have provided at least one patch from release to release. And we've stayed mostly stable on the retained contributors, which is good.
75 or so, that's not too
And that makes sense that in Newton, that was when we had a bunch of new drivers trying to come in and stuff.
Would we really expect the retained number to be more than half of the total number? That might just kind of be the nature of the thing.
I wouldn't think so. I can probably guess who's in the screen section. A quarter of them are sitting in the room. But I mean, I think it's interesting. We're staying relatively stable in contributors and number of patches we're getting through, so I think it's pretty good.
If you look at the Stackalytics page, then you can have a graph similar to this one, but since the beginning of the OpenStack. And in the Stackalytics, this last part of the curve is not so deep, going so deep. It shows something more going to a stable direction. You have to change the first few for all releases.
We're interested in commits.
Pretty stable.
What happened that we had?
February 18 says 116,000. How did that happen?
It was meant for each box.
Stackalytics has a bug in it, right?
Yeah, I think there's something wrong there. And 90,000 on July 6th of 16. That's exciting.
Maybe that's something to do with new projects being set up or forked or something like the bricks in your client or one of those guys that's going over there.
These numbers like very wildly actually in here. But actually, if you look, there's more activity now than there was at the end of December of last year. So, yeah, it looks like we're staying pretty stable, which is good. This, however, so August of 2015 has been slowly working its way down.
Yeah, I mean, we have fewer people that are doing reviews consistently than we used to, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure is a lot of what that is.
Yep. So that's something we need to work on. But anyway.
Also, I heard that stack analytics is being less relevant today, and if new people are not adding their entry to stack analytics, probably they're not being tracked.
Oh, okay.
Well, people get tracked, but they don't have the correct company and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Entry as others.
I mean, if you get it committed there, you're going to end up in Stackalytics.
Yeah, whether it has all your information is going to depend on what you've put in, what you've committed out there. All right, so we have a half an hour till our picture. What is on the calendar for tomorrow morning? Or do we want to take a nap? That's not a short discussion.
People sleep.
I can't even fake snore without.
Did they bring the awesome hats again?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sean, is this something we could talk about for the next 25 minutes? With the remove python-cinderclient API v1?
Oh. Sure. Let's
Um,
move it.
Yeah, I'm
We
okay.
can do that in 20 minutes.
I can remove, I'm okay to remove it, but I'm just afraid how it will work for OpenstackClient.
Yeah.
That's
Horizon
the issue.
doesn't do.
Yeah, Horizon doesn't use V1
Okay.
such okay, or Greens, I don't remember, but we removed it. And OpenstackClient uses a lot.
So is removing it better than just ignoring it forever and not touching it anymore?
I know some would argue that the right answer would be to just ignore it and not touch it.
Or doing something weird like just mapping it to V2 since they're close and hope that's good enough for anyone who really wants it.
Yeah, really, probably 90% of it could get remapped into V2. So at least we could reduce the amount of code in there. Yeah. How about action for this? I'll check in with the OSC team and see what their opinion is on us removing it.
Do any other clients done this kind of thing?
So if you got we want supporting clients, it could lead that people will be thinking that they still have V1 API.
Is it still in the SDK? Or the
Which was
OpenStack SDK? But they're at V2.
I think it shouldn't be issue for SDK. You can check it.
Okay.
My guess is we're not going to be able to remove it. At least wanted to talk about it.
It looks like the Nova client maybe did the mapping it into V2 idea. I'm not really sure how this works.
Yeah, if we can at least reduce the amount of code, and especially if there's duplication, or reducing duplication, then if we fix things for later versions, we don't have to remember to go back to V1, because no one cares about it on our end.
Okay. That was easy.
Is it deprecated in our code? Is it deprecated?
I don't think the client really is.
Yeah, I don't think we've done anything to mark it that way.
At least we should mark it as deprecated.
So we had V2 deprecated at one point, but didn't deprecate V1.
I mean,
Either one on the client side, I think.
did we deprecate V2 in the client?
Oh,
I'm not sure. Usually the deprecation concerns are about the server side, since the client's official mission is to be compatible with everything. I think historically we haven't tried to really deprecate much there. How does this work for projects who got rid of their client to use OpenstackClient? Doesn't that mean that they probably, like Keystone V1, there's just no client now?
Right.
So there is some precedent.
Well, you would have the latest version that you release. It had it,
Yeah,
right?
well, it's not very different.
Yeah. It's different if you have a client that has removed something, or if the client is no longer supported, so you can only use the latest release that they had. Because their latest release would have the version, our latest release wouldn't have it. V1, so it's different.
I mean, I get this different. I'm not sure that it's different in a way that matters, though.
Yeah.
I think you effectively end up doing the same thing. This would mean moving up to CinderClient V5 too, right?
Yeah. I think that's it.
okay.
Probably find another short topic or just take a longer break before the photo. Go over the release schedule.
Yeah, I was gonna try to push up a patch for that, but I haven't done that yet. Doesn't mean we can't talk about it.
Wait.
Well, it's okay. Because then I'll make sure I'm pushing up what we actually want to do. So, does anybody feel a need to change the release schedule from what we've been doing?
As far as kind of goals for each milestone?
Right,
So you've got 4 more weeks in there.
right.
Yeah, so where does that time get added as far as our logical?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just when I looked at it, it's like the milestones didn't line up exactly proportionally across the extra time.
Right.
So we shifted a little bit. And I'm not saying you should or anything,
Yeah.
just just for what it's worth.
I noticed in Manila, you said you like your new driver deadlines on different weeks than the milestones. You didn't align with the milestones?
We had some on different weeks before, but it was partly like milestone 1, for instance, where we were requiring specs. We're still close to the beginning of the release, so we moved just a little further down and stuff. So it was just like we kept conceptually the same periods, more or less, just adjusted a little. I'm not saying you should.
So why aren't they on there?
It's still about the same amount of time between milestone 3 and actual release, even though there's time before that.
Didn't they merge that?
No, I had whip on it. I'm gonna take it off because it's because I brought it into the group and we talked about it. Nobody objected, so
All right.
it just reminded me right now. I'm gonna take workflow -1 off.
Is it ready to go?
I think so. Gonzo, you okay with it? I mean, everybody, we talked about it.
Yeah.
People were okay, so I'll take workflow -1 off. Yeah,
I'll
just plus
merge
one.
that so it shows up in the calendar.
There we go.
So in Rocky, we had no freezes on milestone 1. We had spec and new driver submission freeze on milestone 2.
Did we hear any desires from people who were contributing things to, I mean, did we have people running up
Thank
against
you.
these deadlines in the last cycle?
The new driver deadlines.
Yeah, new driver as always.
But I don't think if they had a week or two more, it would have made any difference with the ones that missed it.
No.
Yeah.
They were way off the mark.
And feature proposal 3 just before milestone 3.
I'm gonna do a find cinder on that page just so they get highlighted and we can see where the cinder deadlines.
Yeah. Yeah, so those were the 3 points in time we had. R-12 and R-6. Stein 2's at R-13. And Stein 3's at R-, then we would still be at R-6. So we'd have a little bit longer before the final feature freeze, right? A week longer?
What's the date of the summit in here? Is it April? It's at the end, or is it almost at the end?
The next summit
Yeah.
is
November.
Oh, sorry, next year summit.
April 20.
is it April?
It's not on here. I think it's early May, but I'm not sure.
April 29th.
Okay.
I don't think it was finalized when I published this. Yeah, I think we're fine sticking with the same spots in the schedule for our deadlines.
Okay.
Jay, can we mention that we'll have target driver freeze too? Because
Oh, yeah, that'd be a good thing to call out. We run into issues with that.
yeah, we should be clear with it.
Can't see many more being added, but still.
Very fast this issue with NVMe target driver master releases.
So a target driver proposal freeze.
The same as that. Driver.
That makes sense. Can do.
How about the code freeze stage for OS break?
So, the same as non-client libraries freeze.
Yeah.
I think it's milestone 2 or milestone 3. I don't remember.
After milestone 3, a few weeks before RC.
Makes sense.
Yeah, non-client freeze are 6 weeks away from release, the week of February 25th. Oh, it's the week before Stein 3. Okay.
So the same time as our feature proposal freeze, which makes sense. Well, I guess it doesn't really make a difference, but. Okay, good. I think that's all we have there then. Got next couple things off the agenda for tomorrow. Should we stop now?
Yeah.
So we can go powder our noses before we go for our team picture, and this time we won't be pelted by sleet and snow and 60-mile-an-hour wind.
Yeah.
All right.